happy Prime Minister, a happy Alberta Premier, but a lot of unhappy critics. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Well, you can't please everyone. It's the day after the big signing of the MOU between Ottawa and Alberta. And the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is down a cabinet minister, Stephen Guilbeault, the one-time activist for Greenpeace, who rose to become the environment minister under Justin Trudeau, is leaving Mark Carney's cabinet because he can't support a pipeline to the BC coast, and he can't support what he describes as the undoing of so many of his initiatives to fight climate change. In a statement on social media, Prime Minister Carney thanked Mr. Guilbeault for staying on as a Liberal MP, but said the two have differing views. Stephen Guilbeault is not the only person who can't deal with this deal. The leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May, who supported the Liberal budget just barely a week ago, is calling this new pact between Ottawa and Alberta a betrayal.
But this is simply unimaginable. This is a betrayal of so many different values, so many different agreements, so many different orders of rights and existing Canadian law. It completely sets the stage for the complete abandonment of Canada's climate policy. It is simply shocking.
The NDP is having a leadership race, and the candidates vying to be the new leader of that party were having a debate in Montreal. Just hours after the news broke about the Ottawa-Alberta deal, candidate Avi Lewis, a well-known environmental activist, vowed there will be resistance to any more pipelines through BC.
But I remember the community, Indigenous community in Bella Bella, when the Northern Gateway Pipeline was proposed, and the environmental review panel went up to that community, and there were kids, 11, 12 years old, who found a new lease on life, who found reason and purpose and joy and collective struggle in resisting that pipeline. They made beautiful handmade signs, and they lined the little road from the small airport in Bella Bella when the review panel came to town. Do you remember this? And those folks from Ottawa went by in their cars. Someone got upset and banged a door or a window, and they were so afraid for their lives that they went back to the airport and they canceled the hearing. And those young people beat that pipeline, and they found a new lease on life and a new purpose in their communities, and we are going to ask them to fight it again? Completely unacceptable.
The Bloc Québécois is also against a pipeline, even though it would go nowhere near that province. Party leader Yves-François Blanchet says the Bloc is against a pipeline because Prime Minister Carney's vision of Canada is basically Bay Street meets Calgary.
The fiscal systems are different. There's no such thing as one Canadian economy. But there's one such thing as a direct bridge between the banking system of Toronto, which finances the oil and gas industry in Western Canada. And this is his vision of one Canada. His vision of Canada is somehow provinces being colonies of this axe between Toronto and Western Canada. And he doesn't give a damn about what Quebec thinks or the language we speak. That's his vision of Canada. And people will have by themselves. They don't have to listen to me. They don't have to believe something because I say it. But I just want them to see for themselves, to get information, to think, to discuss. And what they will find might have them regret their vote.
Up until yesterday, the most vocal opponent to this deal between Ottawa and Alberta has been the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, who is continuing to suggest a new pipeline has nothing going for it.
The pipeline proposal has no project proponent. There is not one private company that has stepped up to say, if you build it, we'll buy it. If the approvals are in place, we'll build it. Not one. It has no route. Currently, taxpayers, through the Trans Mountain Pipeline Corporation, are funding the development of the route. Not only does it not have permits, it doesn't even have a route. But the third thing it doesn't have is something that the Prime Minister said he believed was core in the House, in the federal parliament just recently, that First Nations agree and support projects before they will go forward through the Major Projects Office. And this project does not have the support of coastal First Nations. And that's important to us in
even the
BC.
leader of the Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre, has his own issues with this deal because he doesn't believe the Liberals will ever actually build a pipeline.
They don't know the year that construction will begin. They don't know the decade that construction will begin. And the environment minister couldn't even bring herself to utter the word pipeline in her answer to the question. And what today's deal allows a proposal for a pipeline to go to an office in 7 months, which will then be studied for 2 years, after which the Prime Minister will give a pipeline veto to the BC NDP Premier, who's already said he's against. Isn't this pipeline going to be built in the year never?
But for Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, she says a pipeline from Alberta to the West Coast is one step closer to reality.
Well, a lot closer today than we were yesterday. Part of the way pipelines get built is that you've got confidence among producers, and so when a pipeline company goes out and says, who's willing to put barrels on this pipeline, that's when they come forward. Well, our pipeline producers didn't have that confidence because they were being told that by 2030 or 2035, they'd have to shut in likely 2 million barrels a day of production. That's why removing the emissions cap was so important. That was a precondition for us getting the confidence back in the energy sector. And I suspect that there's going to be a lot of boards of directors that are doing some analysis of old projects that they want to dust off to see if they can bring them back on stream.
As for the coastal First Nations of BC, a spokesperson is saying they remain opposed to a pipeline and they will launch a legal challenge if needed. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
He's our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership. Barry McLoughlin is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry lectures at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. You can read him on his Substack, listen to his podcast, and he's with us every Friday. How are you this week?
Great, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Well, what a sight to behold. Danielle Smith and Mark Carney in the same room, smiling, shaking hands, saying nice things about one another, but apparently all too much for poor Stephen Guilbeault. Quit the cabinet. Mr. Guilbeault is public enemy number one in Alberta. Some people, I will get calls about this from time to time from callers in Calgary. They remember him climbing onto the roof of Ralph Klein's house, scaring Mrs. Klein, who was home at the time, back in his environmental activist days. I once asked our callers during Talkback, what could Mr. Carney do to prove that he's different from Mr. Trudeau? And the most common answer, the most popular answer was get rid of Guilbeault. Get rid of Guilbeault. Well, now he's gone. He's not going to be at the grown-ups table anymore. He won't be a cabinet minister. But do you think Mark Carney is sad to see Mr. Guilbeault out of the picture?
Oh, no. Yeah, I think this was inevitable. I felt so right from the beginning. He cut loose some pretty significant players that were at the cabinet table when he formed his government. And he left Mr. Guilbeault in there. Minister of Identity and Culture, which Mr. Guilbeault is now calling, he was the Minister of Nature, which is a whole new thing that even Mark Carney never heard of. So, I think he's glad to have him loose from the cabinet. He can't be in the cabinet. I mean, he waited. He knew this was coming. He knew this was, pardon the pun, down the pipeline. He waited until he can pronounce on it and position his exit on it. So it was quite a little bit of a performance there. No, I think, frankly, there have been doubts from the get-go. I remember coaching very senior executives at the Minister of Environment when the Trudeau government first came in, and they were so relieved, I can tell you, that Guilbeault was not the first Minister of Environment. Big relief all around, because they knew, oh boy, this is going to be quite the up and downhill ride. And so anyway, he got into it, and then he noticed he was taken out of it. So he wasn't the long-standing environment minister. He's always been on the more extremist fringe of it all. And so, this was inevitable. This was inevitably going to happen. So I think that this is why we've now reached this point inevitably.
You know, I, for one, will not shed a tear. I always found Stephen Guilbeault to be arrogant. And I think he is an environmental radical. And I mean, we're talking about a man who's never owned a car. I'm sorry. I just don't trust people who have never owned cars and they're grown men. That's just me. I think he's just out of touch with everyday Canadians and their struggles. And I think if the Prime Minister wants to be seen as a centrist, as a moderate, as a pragmatist, and not an ideologue, he has to distance himself from these former Trudeau ministers, and Mr. Guilbeault fits the bill perfectly. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I think this was one that he didn't quite, I guess, see coming, but inevitably, Mr. Carney is going to be judged by, did he get this economy moving? Are we still, after 4 years, still totally dependent on the United States? Is there any avenue out of this? The resource sector is so critically important to Canada's economic future and current economy. To not have a pipeline to Tidewater is just a complete debacle. The president of India comes and says, "I will buy all your oil," but you have to get it there relatively economically to make that a reality. And so he has to do this. He knew doing this that it was not going to satisfy, the Greens. It wasn't going to satisfy the NDP and the leftist elements of the party. He knew that. He's taking a risk, but he had to do something.
Yeah. Do you think he's going to have caucus problems because of this? I mean, there are all kinds of reports. People are unhappy. What do you think?
We talked to a few, funny enough, last night at an event, and they're not unhappy, but they're a bit surprised by certain things because, obviously this was done in a different type of setting. This wasn't a First Minister's conference or a public thing. It was a negotiated arrangement and an MOU, as they call it. Yes, they can't all be part of that. But I think, I've been involved in some of these at some level. And I will say this, that, okay, right now, yes, it is true. It's just a memorandum of understanding, but that's where it begins. And yes, you do need a proponent. Yeah, that will have to come. And then you'll have, the consultation process. I've worked directly with First Nations, and they're going to say no right away. Why? Because it's a almost theoretically conceptual thing versus sitting down with a chief and band council and a community and step by step negotiate what are the terms here. How do we ensure the safety of this pipeline? How do we ensure that you co-own this in every meaningful way? That has to tangibly happen, and no will be the answer until we get to that stage. And I think they actually know this.
Okay. So that's political communications. When we come back, how about crisis communications and branding? You have an iconic brand, Campbell's Soup. And this week, quite out of the blue, was facing a corporate crisis with its brand and had to fire an executive. What's the playbook for something like that? We'll ask Barry McLoughlin when we return. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Barry McLoughlin is with us, the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. He's here every Friday. You think about that brand, okay? Think about it. I say Campbell's Soup. What do you picture, Barry? The can of tomato soup, right? That's what you picture.
And the triggered. That's why Campbell's Soup is good. It goes into my brain right away. But I was at the grocery store yesterday, and I was going to buy my usual tomato rice soup. They happen to not have it. And instead of looking elsewhere, what came into my brain was this crisis that occurred, where this executive is saying terrible things about what really is in these Campbell Soup cans. And I just moved on. I went to Habitant. I think that if I'm, half of your brain is aware of certain things, but the other half is an emotional experience. And when you've been exposed to something like that, it triggers your trust in the brand. It does. I now have a trust problem.
You do? Okay, interesting. For people who aren't aware, Campbell's Soup fired an executive this week who was caught on a recording insulting the company's products, insulting the customers, insulting employees. And, he called the company's products SH for effing poor people. We have a little bit of the tape here. Let's play it here.
I don't buy health products barely anymore. It's not healthy. Now that I know what the in it. Even in a can of soup, I look at it and look at meat, bioengineered meat. I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer, do you?
So that hits social media, leaked recording. The mainstream media picks up on it. Okay, so you're in the C-suite at Campbell Soup. You're in the news not because of any reason you want to be in the news, and your brand is about to take a nightmarish hit. What do you do? Well, first of all, you fire the guy. That's what they did. They fired him. But what else do you do?
Well, they've launched an internal investigation. Okay, right. Fine. That's certainly step one. This is not going to be that simple. The Attorney General of Florida apparently is now launching an investigation to see what the content of that Campbell Soup is, and so on, the chicken in particular, that was, lab created according to what that clip seemed to imply. So they're obviously, once it gets to that level, we need the CEO in play. We need a video of the CEO looking directly into that camera and telling us meaningfully and from his heart how this is so wrong, so inaccurate, and it's important to rebuild the trust of the public, of our valued consumers. Most of us are lifetime Campbell Soup, consumers. I certainly am, and I think I'm not alone in that. So he has to realize this requires the CEO. This has gone way beyond who did what. We do find out, however, that it first was exposed in January of 2025, and the guy above him said no. The guy that wanted to whistleblow on it stopped him from moving upwards with it. And I think that they have to look at their own investigation. If somebody is got a concern about that kind of conduct that has really potential damage, they need to be heard, and there should be a safe process in the corporation for handling whistleblowers. So they've got some process issues to deal with also. So I think this is a much bigger thing than obviously Campbell wants to have. But they say you have to do 5 times the action for every 1 unit of damage. So you have to be all over this. And it's going to require a lot more than one little, quick comment. He's got to absolutely, and if there's any truth to anything, we need to make sure that that's not going to be a repetition. I just think there's something here that cannot just be brushed away.
Wow. Okay. More serious than I thought. Okay. Thank you, Barry McLoughlin. You have yourself a wonderful weekend. We'll speak next week.
Thanks, Rob. You too.
All the best. Bye-bye. Barry McLoughlin from TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants. Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter, coming up next on News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Well, he's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. Tom Korski is back with us, the managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter. Good to hear from you again.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, Tom, it seems only fitting that we should reminisce today. Because it's the end of the line for Stephen Guilbeault and his time as cabinet minister. I was going through my archive. When you're a subscriber to Blacklock's like I am, you get access to all the archive material that Blacklock's has. What an endless source of material Mr. Guilbeault was for you and your fine team at Blacklock's Reporter. Do you have a fondest memory of Mr. Guilbeault, Tom?
It really is the end of an era, isn't it? He was enthusiastic in so many ways. I think my favorite of all time was the fake fan mail over the carbon tax. It still brings a smile to the face. In the day when it was getting pretty hot over the carbon tax, this was before his own party dropped the consumer carbon tax, Minister Guilbeault would claim to receive fan mail from Westerners. This was crucial.
Yes.
Westerners who just loved everything about the extra tax on gasoline. Jill from Regina was one. And then there was another one, Bob, a teacher. And he would wave papers in the House of Commons and say, I have here a letter from Jill in Regina, and who just loves everything about the carbon tax. And MPs would jeer and hoot. And pandemonium would break out in the House of Commons. And there was never any record. MPs would search afterwards. We would call, file and access to information. Jill never existed. But those were good times. We'll always have memories, Rob.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We will have lots of memories. We're going to reminisce today. Jill lives in the riding of the member for Regina Capel. She does not want the carbon pricing rebate to go away. Why would the Conservative Party of Canada cut this program from Jill? Bob, a teacher, also wrote us. Bob told us that he is making more money with the carbon pricing rebate than if there were no rebate. Bob is asking us and the Conservative Party to keep the carbon pricing rebate. And yet still, to this day, nobody has discovered who Jill from Regina Capel or Bob, the mysterious teacher who could live, I suppose, anywhere in Canada, who they actually are. Yeah.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about
I have a personal favorite. It was when he said he was at a conference, I believe it was in Montreal. This all happened about a year ago. And it was about urban development and sustainable transportation and bike lanes and public transit. And he let it slip that the federal government wouldn't put any more money into roads. No more money for roads. You remember that, Tom? No more money for roads from the Liberal government, which was we're getting out of the road business, which was news apparently to the government. And he was quickly forced to backtrack, and he was cornered in the hallways of Parliament Hill and was like, "That's not what I said." Let's listen to this.
We have programs to fund roads. What we have said, and maybe I should have been more specific, and of course we're funding roads. We have programs to fund roads. What we have said, and maybe I should have been more specific in the past, is that we don't have funds for large projects like the Troisième Lien that the CAQ has been trying to do for many years.
Our government has made the decision to stop investing in new road infrastructure.
I just told you that I should have been more specific in that statement. and
I should have been more specific, yeah. That was another classic. But you know what? There remain unanswered questions, I think, with Mr. Guilbeault and his relationship with a firm called Cycle Capital. Because Conservatives allege that Cycle Capital managed to secure money from SDTC, Sustainable Development Technology Canada. This was the so-called Green Slush Fund, which caused paralysis in the House of Commons for months on end. I would read you some testimony from Michael Cooper, for example, Conservative MP at committee. I want to ask you about Cycle Capital. SDTC funded Cycle Capital somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million. Went to Cycle Capital. This is a company that Mr. Guilbeault is a major shareholder in. He worked as a lobbyist for Cycle Capital. The managing partner happens to be a friend of Cycle Capital. Some $17 million went out the door to Cycle Capital while Mr. Guilbeault served in cabinet. Did anyone think this was a good idea? And then the witness from SDTC said, well, all I can tell you is that we never gave money to Cycle Capital. It's not a company we gave funding to. And Mr. Cooper said, well, to the companies in the Cycle Capital, meaning the portfolio. But the portfolio, you know what? We never really did get any kind of clarity in that because they despite an order from the House of Commons, they never released any. They covered up that information about that Green Slush Fund. Tom, I'm saying that.
Oh no, that's a demonstrable fact. In fact, the Conservative and Bloc members on the committee found this so suspicious that here you had an environmentalist, Guilbeault, and, the hippie persona with a bicycle kind of confused some people. But he reported income from this, what was really a holding company, Cycle Capital, when he was in cabinet. Think about that. You have a cabinet minister who is reporting income from a federal contractor that's receiving federal government funds. And the opposition parties wanted to get Guilbeault in committee to explain his fascinating investment portfolio, but those were the days when the NDP had a crucial vote on committees, and they voted with the government caucus and shut it down. That was the only thing that saved Steve. It would have gotten pretty hot. Who said in between the luxury suites at Egyptian COP meetings and the business flights and the investments he had, no one should ever be confused that being a green warrior was to take a vow of poverty. It was okay for Steve.
Yeah, we'll be right back with a little more on this and more stories from Ottawa today, where Tom Korski, of course, has been minding the government's business. Aren't you glad somebody is? This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Here with Tom Korski from Blacklock's reporter. Just a few things on the career of Mr. Guilbeault. And Mr. Guilbeault said, well, I'm not going to travel as much as the former Environment Minister, Catherine McKenna. I'm going to take the train. Yeah, never quite lived up to that promise. This guy racked up, you correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it about $700,000 in travel expenses in a year, Tom?
Huge. Yeah. And that was in the heyday of these United Nations conferences at spectacular resorts. And he would lead like a 260-member delegation. They'd stay in a very fine hotel. One conference in Egypt, what were the hotel charges for the Canadian delegation? $1.8 million. And it was a very, very fine hotel. There was a disco, there was a lounge where you could, relax while you discussed the climate, which was changing, as everyone knows. It was remunerative, Rob. It was pleasant work.
Oh yeah. There was once an itemized list at. Let me do this. Okay, it's going to sound like a bit of a Stompin' Tom song, but $711,000 in travel expenses in 1 year. Abu Dhabi, Amsterdam, they're in alphabetical order. Banff, Bella Coola, Berlin, Bogota, Brasilia, Brussels, Buenos Aires, Calgary, Charlottetown, Copenhagen, from Charlottetown to Copenhagen, Denver, Edmonton, Eureka, Fredericton, from Fredericton to Florence, as Florence, Italy, Geneva, Halifax, Hamilton, Helsinki, Interlaken, Iqaluit, Kinshasa, Leipzig, Libsyn, London, Montreal, New Delhi, New York, Niagara Falls, Paris, Quebec City, Rome, Saguenay, Santiago, Sapporo, Sarnia, from Sapporo to Sarnia, Saskatoon to Sharm el-Sheikh, Smoky Lake, Thunder Bay, Timmins to Tokyo, Toronto, Vancouver, Vaughan, Victoria, Vienna, Washington, Whitehorse, and Winnipeg. Yeah, he got around. He sure got around.
And for all that, Rob, there was one trip he didn't take, and I think it cost taxpayers a lot of money. This was a man who boasted publicly that he'd been riding a bike, only a bicycle, never owned a car, rode a bike in Montreal, his hometown, for 30 years. And one day, this was 4 years ago, right around this time of year, he said, you know what, he told reporters, I'm going to take the Via Rail across the country after New Year's in January, and I'm going to talk about climate change as I go. And I'm really going to get the pulse of the people. What did he say? I quote him, I look forward to traveling across the country early in the new year by train to meet and discuss the best way to implement the agenda Canadians set for us. Well, some of us were thrilled because that really gives you a feel for shortcomings in the climate program. When your Via Rail locomotive freezes up a little bit outside Weyburn and you can see the north wind rolling across the plains at minus 35, and then you might grasp why carbon taxes in a subarctic economy are problematic. Rob, it was the only trip he didn't take. Sad.
Just one more footnote. When did he qualify for an MP's pension?
Oh, that was a huge day. That was Halloween.
Halloween?
He just did. He just got his 6 years. And it was the October 31st. He was one of the class elected in 2019 who just made it. So he'll have his pension. Average payouts are up to $86,000 a year now.
Yeah, and most of that time will be, most of those 6 years will have been at a cabinet minister's salary.
Much higher
based
than
on
average,
much higher than a mere backbench MP. Of course, they only make $203,000, whereas you get $100,000 raise if you're a cabinet minister. Okay, I know you're as heartbroken as I am that he's not part of the cabinet.
It's the end of an era. We have our memories, Rob.
We'll always have Sharm el-Sheikh. Okay. How much did the government spend faking that housing photo op for the prime minister?
It was a pretty penny. It was almost $33,000, and that was just to have people dress up as construction workers, and have a housing company in a suburb of Ottawa, in a PN, put up a kind of fake a construction site, and they would put up these prefab houses to look good behind the prime minister, and at the second the TV cameras left, they disassembled them.
Yeah, isn't that something? The Potemkin photo op. That's what the people are calling it, the Potemkin house. Yeah, that's great. $32,707 for one photo op. Wasn't that something? I think we're going to have to wrap it up there for this week. Tom Korski, great to hear from you.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, we'll catch up next week. Tom Korski is the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. And I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
If you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, we have a mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to. You can listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R, and it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. And you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R. Well, you know, Curtis, I watch gas prices like a hawk. So we're still close to $1.50 where I live for gas. But the trend across the country is lower. Now, in Halifax, they set the gas price once a week, dropped about 4 cents yesterday, 141.4. In the National Capital Region, the big city of Ottawa, 132.9. Kitchener, about a penny lower there, 131.9. Vancouver, my gosh, 164. And that's like the screaming deal. That's like the lowest price in the Vancouver area, and the gas station's not making any money. There's like no retail margin whatsoever. They're still paying $1.64 a liter in Vancouver. But in Calgary, 116.6. According to News Radio Calgary, that's the average price, Curtis. 116.6.
It's a good day to fill up my Audi.
Well, you have a fancy car.
Yeah.
So you have to put premium in it. So what's the premium? Must be about $1.35, something like that.
It's wherever I go that gas buddy tells me to go.
All right. Okay. Yeah, $59 oil these days. Just Bitcoin recovered today a little bit, though. So that's good for you, Curtis. You know, you won't have to sell the Audi anytime soon, back above 91,000 for the Bitcoins. Now, in many parts of the country, like your part of the country, Curtis, the big story is the weather. Another cold and kind of snowy day out there in Calgary, right?
Well, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I will not be selling the car anytime soon. It gets me through this snow. So it's definitely a week where you want the four-wheel drive, the all-wheel drive. So
yeah, you got the Quattro drive there on the Audi. Yeah. But what do you got? A high in like the low minus double digits, say like what, minus 11, minus 10, something like that for a daytime high today. No above zero temperatures in the Calgary area till like Monday of next week. Yeah. And even that might be a one-day wonder. In the Kitchener area, it's like bad. The snow squall watch in effect. Could be, you know, Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, that whole area. 15 to 30 centimeters of snow between now and Sunday. It's been snowing since yesterday. And very high winds, 50 to 70 kilometers an hour, wind gusts. And parts of York and Simcoe region could get much as 50 centimeters of snow.
What?
By Sunday, 50 centimeters. So they're going to have a white Christmas. Halifax is the notable exception from all of this winter misery. Daytime high in Halifax today, still +7. And wouldn't you take that right about now? No below zero temperatures for at least the next 5 or 6 days out that way.
All right. Well, get the beach towel and umbrella out.
Yesterday was American Thanksgiving. Today, Black Friday. Shop till you drop. And, of course, American Thanksgiving this time of year. Travel, turkey, and lots of football. I partook in the football yesterday, NFL games yesterday. Packers over the Lions, 31-24. Cowboys beat the Chiefs. 31-28. Yep, the Chiefs are 6-6 and have a less than 40% chance of making the playoffs. Upset in the late game. Who had the Bengals over the Ravens? Not me. Bengals down the Ravens, 32-14. More football on today. I know what I'm doing this afternoon. I will have 2 screens going. I will have the Bears and Eagles are on as soon as I get off work. And then an hour later, there's NHL hockey. Senators are in St. Louis at 4 p.m. Eastern. Calgary Flames and Panthers today, 2 o'clock your time out in Calgary. And at 5 p.m. Eastern time, it's the Leafs and the Capitals today. The Leafs, my gosh, sporting the second worst record in the Eastern Conference. Or Buds fans. My gosh. All right. Talkback, Friday Free for All Talkback is coming up right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today, it is our Friday free-for-all, our favorite day of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics on Friday. We leave that job up to you. Every single phone line available right now. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. What's on your mind today? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that has been in the news, there is always news. And no shortage of news this week. If you want to talk about something you think should be in the news, you feel free to raise it here. Whatever it happens to be, can be serious, can be not so serious. We have a phone line for you. And again, the number to call, 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that to us, and we'll make your call a priority. We always have some topics ready to go, but you just consider them conversation starters, okay? And nothing more. What do you think about what you're hearing? A lot of boo birds about the deal between Mark Carney and Danielle Smith. But this signifies why this has been getting so much attention for the last week or so. Because even though building pipelines has, and polls bear this out, building pipelines has broad public support from one end of the country to the other. Whether that's building a pipeline to British Columbia, even the majority of voters in British Columbia support that idea. Or building a pipeline east to a place like Churchill, Manitoba, or St. John, New Brunswick. Even Quebecers in great numbers support building pipelines. There are a lot of loud voices on the other side. A lot of loud voices on the other side. And they have been out in full force since yesterday afternoon. Take, for example, we're going to play you some of the critics. Take, for example, this person. This person is the Green Party leader in British Columbia, a young woman named Emily Lowen. And she posted this on her social media account.
This pipeline will never happen, and we'll make sure of it. So Mark Carney and Danielle Smith just came out today with a memorandum of understanding, putting their support behind a new oil pipeline that would be rammed through BC's coast without our consent and without the consent of coastal First Nations. This is a spit in the face to British Columbians, to our economy and our environment. We tried this a decade ago. We tried it with the Northern Gateway pipeline. We tried it with Trans Mountain. And guess what? Private proponents pulled out and left working people with $50 billion in debt. But now it's even worse. Oil prices are down and they won't recover. If we have a spill, coastal First Nations and northern communities' livelihoods will be destroyed for generations.
So again, Emily Lowen, Green Party leader in British Columbia, thinks it's cool to use the F word. But that's what Mark Carney and Danielle Smith, I guess, are going to be up against. People with that view. Elizabeth May Gosh, she must be feeling as though she's been duped because it was barely a week ago that she voted for the Liberal budget. And she said, she spoke with the Prime Minister and she was assured by the Prime Minister, Canada will live up to its obligations to fight climate change. Now, here we are barely a week later, and we have this deal between Ottawa and Alberta. And maybe someday, maybe many, many years from now, there could be a pipeline to the northwest coast of BC. Elizabeth May, not happy. Let's roll the tape there.
But this is simply unimaginable. This is a betrayal of so many different values, so many different agreements, so many different orders of rights and existing Canadian law. It completely sets the stage for the complete abandonment of Canada's climate policy. It is simply shocking.
It is simply shocking. It is a betrayal. So Elizabeth May, another unhappy customer. Now, I thought this created an awkward situation for Pierre Poilievre since he's a Conservative MP from Alberta these days. He's, of course, originally from Alberta. Big believer in the natural resources sector, big booster of pipelines. And he has forever been against a lot of the same things that Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, has been complaining about for years. And Danielle Smith certainly seems happy with this deal, but Pierre Poilievre just doesn't think it's ever going to see the light of day. They're just never going to build a pipeline. The Liberals just don't believe in pipelines, and they're not going to build one. This is what Pierre Poilievre said in the House of Commons yesterday.
They don't know the year that construction will begin. They don't know the decade that construction will begin. And the Environment Minister couldn't even bring herself to utter the word pipeline in her answer to the question. And what today's deal allows a proposal for a pipeline to go to an office in 7 months, which will then be studied for 2 years, after which the Prime Minister will give a pipeline veto to the BC NDP Premier, who's already said he's against. Isn't this pipeline going to be built in the year never?
So he doesn't like the deal, but for different reasons, he just doesn't think the Liberals will ever allow it to be built. So let me ask you this. I mean, it is the day after the big announcements. Mark Carney seems pleased with himself. Danielle Smith, I mean, you can't wipe the smile off the Premier's face, but you hear a lot of critics, a lot of doubters. Are we ever going to see another pipeline from Alberta to BC? You think that's ever going to happen? Or do you think we're in for a repeat of Northern Gateway, in for a repeat of Energy East, and it's just going to get tied up or bogged down, never-ending protests, nonstop court challenges? And what company wants to get into the middle of that? What do you see happening here? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think should happen? Maybe you don't think the country needs another pipeline. If that's your point of view, I don't share it, but you feel free to raise it here. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. It's the Friday free-for-all. That's one topic we can talk about, but you can lead the way. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We had some Friday free-for-all. Talkback here on News Radio. 1-833-668-2577. Shirley is in Okotoks. Hi, Shirley.
Hello.
Hi, Shirley. What's on your mind today? Very good.
Well,
Thank you. Go ahead.
I have 2 points that I'd like to discuss today, and that is, number one, I can't imagine another leader running this country right now. He's Mark Carney, stays calm and carries on, and he runs the country like that echoes. And carries on. He runs the country as a business leader, and I love how he's not being rattled by Trump and all his threats. He's going around the world getting new business and new direction for this country, and you can't turn it around quickly, but he's doing an amazing job, and I can't imagine any other leader doing that. My second point is, when you're doing this pipeline between the federal government and Alberta, you have to put a deal together with the contents first, the oil. The rest of it will come. The First Nations people, BC Premier, that's what happened with the last pipeline. They argued, they fighted, there was lawsuits. They had the pipeline almost in the ground until Burnaby stopped it for a little while. So this is going to happen eventually, but it's got to start somewhere. When Poilievre goes beaking off yesterday at Parliament saying it's never going to happen, well, it's got to start somewhere, and it's all political. It will happen. It'll take a little bit of time and some confidence and some positive energy instead of all this negative rhetoric.
Okay. So are you generally pleased then with the agreement between Danielle Smith and Mark Carney? Are you generally pleased with it? Yes?
Yes, I am. Because we've got, I'm an Albertan, and I'm born and raised in Alberta, and we have the oil, and it's going to make Canada strong. How else are we going to get it out of here?
Okay. What do you think about what you're what do you think about what you're hearing from opponents in British Columbia outside of Pierre Poilievre? Pierre Poilievre just doesn't believe the Liberals.
Well, they just got their nose out of joint right now because they're not being consolidated. When that happens, the First Nations are going to make a whole bunch of money on this, and they'll stroke the Premier of BC's ego. It'll be all fine. It just takes a little bit of time. But you can't put a deal together until you have the product. And it's between the federal government and Alberta right now. Second phase is the approvals from First Nations and BC. It's a phased approach.
All right. Thank you, Shirley. Yep. Very good. Off to a good start today. Let's go to Jody up next. Hi, Jody.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Jody. What's on your mind today?
I mean, the agreement that that Carney and Danielle Smith made, yeah, it sounds good on paper. It sounds good, but you know what? It's going to take forever. I mean, even if it does, it's going to take forever to even get shovels in the ground. I mean, it's just hearsay. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, the best news out of this is that Stephen Guilbeault resigned. I'm sorry, I can't say names, but. Yeah, he resigned, which is great news. I mean, I wish he would just go to Quebec and stay there. You know, basically, that's where he should. You know, where he should. But I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. I mean, if it does, this is going to be years. I mean, and like Poilievre said, it's just like two people talking about doing something and signing paperwork, that's all it is.
Okay. So you're not very confident that you're going to see a new pipeline to, say, the Northwest Coast of BC maybe in your lifetime? I mean, that's the kind of time frame I'm talking about.
I doubt it. With Elizabeth, with May, whatever, like the one Green Party member, which they shouldn't even have a party, and then David Eby and the minions in BC, whatever, and all this blah 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 stuff. It's just too much red tape. So I mean, yeah, it sounds good, and maybe like Carney did. He's I don't know. Anyway, I think it's all okay. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Jody. You're originally from Atlantic Canada. You're living there in Alberta. Don't you feel that yesterday kind of signified, though, a resetting of the relationship? Like at least Alberta's getting a little more respect now than it used to under the Trudeau years, with Mark Carney as Prime Minister? Do you feel as though...
I thought it was very positive. It was
very
definitely
positive.
A positive.
Okay.
It was enough to get Guilbeault to resign, which is like, you know what? Like this definitely sent a message, right?
Okay.
So it was a very positive thing, and I have a little bit of respect for Carney now. So, and that aspect,
that's interesting.
It was, and Ottawa looks good, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, the only Canadian team that would make the playoffs if they started today, I'll take that.
Well, if Montreal had goaltending, they might have a chance. But yeah.
Yeah, as long as they're ahead of the Leafs, that's all that really matters to me.
Yeah,
I really can't stand the Leafs. Yeah. All right, Jody. Okay, thank you. We're off and running. It's the Friday free-for-all talkback. 1-833-668-2577. Pipeline politics have been dominating the discussion for most of the week, but we can go anywhere you want us to go today. If you want to start a brand new conversation, you feel free to do so. Love to hear from you today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
That's our Friday free-for-all talkback. And we'd love to hear from you today. Open line, open topic here on News Radio. And to Halifax, Dave is in Halifax. Hi, Dave.
You did say it was open line, right?
I did indeed. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Free for all.
Your first caller. She thinks Mark Carney is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now, while he's been gallivanting around the globe, we've had record number of middle income lining up at food banks, my friend, and that's a fact. So, what has he done for us lately? Now, this pipeline. What is a memorandum of understanding? Like, what is the legality of that? It's obviously very loose. Now, my take on this pipeline, it's there's so much obstacles in the way here. You have a geographic nightmare, logistics-wise, as far as running a pipe through. If anybody's aware of what runs down between the spine of BC and Alberta, it's mountains, a lot of mountain. And then you've got the First Nations folks that have claimed a lot of land in British Columbia. I don't know how much in Alberta, but in British Columbia. Good luck with that. And Eby, BC NDP premier, who barely got in, by the way, is a environmentalist. And yet he sells more coal up in northern BC to China, which is high carbon, right? And the United States is the biggest customer.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah. The highest carbon.
Coal is exactly. It could be clean coal, but it's still very high. So what a hypocrite he is, and he's making billions off of that too, by the way. So to me,
$9 billion a year industry, coal exports from BC. It's the most valuable export they have. It will be eventually, I believe, surpassed by LNG, but right now it's coal. It's the number one export.
And Rob, don't get me wrong. We got to move our resources. And if Carney can get this done in 10 years, I'd be amazed. But so much is going to happen between then and now. I mean, you're going to have Trump. He's going to be out of there probably in 3 years or 4 years, whatever. And things will change. The world changed so quickly. And I think this is smoke and mirrors, my friend.
Well, I will tell you, and again, I mentioned this yesterday, and it's a point that Mr. Poilievre has made. David Eby can... he can kick up a fuss and whine and moan and complain and whatever, all he wants. And he can try to throw up obstacles, I suppose. And he doesn't have any say. This is a federal jurisdiction. Pipelines, when they're interprovincial like this, are totally in the federal domain. And it was settled at the Supreme Court. They had a court case over this. Yep. Okay. And if I could, and as far as First Nations, it would be nice. And this will eventually, if it ever comes into being, will be partly, if not fully owned by First Nations. That's part of the MOU, that it has to have Indigenous ownership, either in whole or in part. So that's a pretty big carrot right there. And again, the Ottawa, the Crown, will have an obligation to meaningfully consult with First Nations. That's the standard, but it's not a veto. The ultimate authority lies with the federal government. So this is where the rubber meets the road on leadership for Mark Carney on the pipeline file.
Can I add one more thing? Good luck getting investors with this. Good luck getting investment. You need investment to put this thing through. It can't be just all taxpayers' money. And we don't have a great track record for pipelines. Look at Keystone XL, although that was Biden that turned that down.
Northern Gateway.
Northern Gateway.
Energy East. Energy East, 5 years. I think it was 5 years and $1 billion for Energy East, and the company walked away, waved the white flag.
I rest my case,
All right,
Rob.
got to wrap it up.
You.
Thank you. Bye-bye. The latest breaking news is next, and then more of your calls on a Friday free-for-all talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free-for-all talkback on News Radio. Back to our phone calls today. Chris is in Calgary. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, good to hear from you today, Chris. What's on your mind?
First of all, I hope it's warmer where you are than it is here. It's minus 10 with wind chills to minus 20. Anyway, let's talk pipelines.
Sure.
Something that hasn't been mentioned yet. I think what they're really doing, well, first of all, it's a good sign. Let's be positive about it, okay? But I think what they're really trying to do is they're trying to take the wind out of the sails of the Alberta independence movement, which is gaining, it's still a minority, but it's gaining speed. And so and also the UCP convention starts today, so this is a big win for Smith going into that. She's going to be cheered and all of that kind of stuff. As far as whether it's going to happen or not, personally, I don't think so. I think this is all being blown out of proportion. It's basically what it is it's an agreement to continue talking, and that's about it. What needs to really happen if you want to take the sails out of the independence movement and do something really positive is Carney needs to make a definitive statement that this is gonna happen. It may take some time, but it is gonna happen. Whether BC likes it or not, whether the coastal tribes like it or not, it's gonna happen.
Okay. Now, Premier Smith suggested, because she was asked during her news conference, do you think this is going to dampen the enthusiasm for independence in Alberta? And she said she hoped so. But do you think it will?
No, absolutely not. I by the way, support separation. It hasn't changed my view because, again, it's all airy-fairy. We're going to talk. Let's be hopeful, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, we all, as Premier Smith said, she did a nice little happy dance. Well, whoop-de-doo. What we need is action, and we need hard-clad promises. Alberta has been shafted by Ottawa so many times. This goes back all the way to 1905 when Alberta joined Confederation and Ottawa kept control of the resources, even though other provinces had been given control over the resources. Alberta didn't get control over the resources until 1930 after a whole bunch of screaming and yelling. We were shafted by Trudeau the first with the National Energy Program. We've just been shafted so many times over the years that I frankly don't have a whole lot of faith in the feds.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you, Chris, for calling today to Cambridge, Ontario. Narad in Cambridge. Thanks for calling, Narad. You're on the air. What's on your mind?
Hi, Rob. Good afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, good, dear. Very good. Thank you.
Yes. Regarding pipelines, so this is very interesting, actually. I am wondering, actually, this is where Carney he is taking initiative on this. That's great. And I don't understand Canadian, some people, they are against of this, and environmental, they are against of this. There is technology, AI, everything, safety. Now, these days is not 100 years before. Now, these days is everything under control. We can go.
Okay.
And, there's a pipeline issue, the oil spill issue, there's nothing. We have resources. We need to find our way how our resources reach to the consumer with a cheaper, competitive price. So this is, everybody needs to think about this. So we are Canadian, so this is our Canadian resources. So if we can use our Canadian resources, we can buy our gas. We can buy a cheaper price. We can use our energy, cheaper price. So I think everybody needs to cooperate. And what the environmental, everything, that's all political. And indigenous people, everybody, that can be educated. That those people that can, and Canada is a huge land. We don't need to draw the pipeline through the populated area. There is a huge land.
Right.
We can
Yeah.
can create our goal. So
but you think things like oil spills, worries about shipping, that with all the modern technology now, there are ways to mitigate a lot of that. Is
like
what you're
that,
saying?
Look like a very funny. Yeah, so we need to think about this century, what going on. Pipeline business, like pipeline transportation system, all over the world is going on, and transportation. We need to think more advanced way. We need to think how we can use our resources.
All right, thank you, Narad in Cambridge, Ontario today. We can do it. We have the technology, he says. West of Calgary, Daryl, up next on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi, Daryl.
Hi, how you doing?
Very good today, Daryl. Thank you. What's on your mind?
Wonderful. Well, I'm glad to see the MOU go through. I think that's a wonderful starting point. I would love to see some of our trading partners come forward and say, you know what, we really want your oil. We need it. And I think that would go a long way in quieting a lot of the environmentalists who complain all the time. I'd also like to point out that there was a caller that said, building a pipeline through the mountains, that's a rough deal. Well, over 100 years ago, we built railways. We can build pipelines, and we can do it safely.
Sure.
That's all I really wanted to say, sir.
All right. So you're encouraged. You're a happy camper.
I'm a happy camper, to be honest with you. I was never a Carney supporter.
Right.
With the departure of Steven Guilbeault, things are looking a lot brighter.
That makes you happy, does it? Okay. That's one of the questions I had, how people feel about the departure of Steven Guilbeault. I'll talk about that in a few minutes here. All right. Thank you. Yeah. More of your calls ahead. We don't have to talk all about pipelines today. There's lots of other news, lots of other topics we can get into. It's the Friday free-for-all, after all. But I can talk about this all day. I'm fine with this as well. 1-833-668-2577. And join the discussion or start one of your own here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
1-833-668-2577 and have your say on the Friday Free for All Talkback today. George in Lacombe up next. Hello, George. Hi, George. Hello, George. All right, no George. Let's try Anand then in Calgary. Hi, Anand.
Good afternoon, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I hear you just fine. What's on your mind?
How are you, Rob?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to reference to one of the podcasts that I heard on your show a couple of days ago about the social media being used by young kids. I have a take that, so I have a take that, around the 16 age mark is when students try to do networking, get connections and all. So I would say if maybe the government can lower the age to like 13 or 12, that way they can stay away from the harmfulness of social media. And I think partly it also falls under parents as well, that they need to restrict social media. I didn't have myself a cell phone or social media till I was around the 16 age mark when I was in high school. And I just had a tablet before that to do my school projects and also. I would say between the 12, 13 mark range is where social media should be cut off for kids so that they can reduce the harmfulness.
All right, Anand, thank you. Yeah, for your call and weighing in on that topic. We talked about that, I believe that was on Tuesday. Now, since then, this is something I just pay attention to, and I'm not saying we should follow what they do in the European Parliament in Brussels, but I would just point out, because one of the reasons I brought that topic forward is because this is a thing. It is happening elsewhere. I mentioned that it's happening in Australia. Their laws coming into effect in the second week of December in Australia, and you would have to be at least 16 to have the social media accounts, and you would have to upload government-issued ID. But in the European Parliament, they passed a resolution, which is, not the same as legislation, but it's a resolution. It's non-binding, but it passed with like multi-party support, saying children under 16 should be banned from using social media unless their parents decide otherwise, and now they're going to strike a panel and study the issue, and we'll see what comes of it. But that was one of the reasons that we brought that forward as a topic a few days ago. Rick, thank you, Anand. Rick is in Halifax. Hi, Rick.
Hi, how you doing, Rob?
Yeah, very good, Rick. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind today?
Well, my concern is, just because you're the opposition leader doesn't mean you have to be always in opposition.
Okay.
I mean, how can any conservative in this country be against the pipeline? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you're elected to represent the people of the country. Now, I listened to the show all week. 90% of the callers that called in said the pipeline is a great thing.
Yeah.
So why not listen to your constituents and support it? Why not get behind Carney and say, okay, what are the deadlines? Let's get this done. Yeah, let's do it. That's what you're elected to do.
Well, that's, in fairness to Pierre Poilievre, I'm not here to put words in his mouth or defend his approach. I was the one who was saying I think it's kind of an awkward position for him to be in, to be seen as opposing something that his kindred spirit, Danielle Smith, so wholeheartedly endorses. I find the situation awkward. But at the same time, I don't think he's questioning the merits of a pipeline, because he's been pushing for a pipeline. He's been saying you can approve a pipeline today. You're the federal government. He's been reading from the Constitution in the House of Commons. Here's what it says in the Constitution. Read the Constitution, Mr. Carney, right? You could approve it today if you wanted to. And we don't have to go through all of this nonsense. But he has to, because he's the opposition leader, cast, I think, doubt on the believability or the credibility of the Carney government, and whether it is really committed to having this pipeline go through to the West Coast, when Mr. Carney says, but you need buy-in from the BC government and you need buy-in from coastal First Nations. I think that's a legitimate criticism to make, don't you?
It's a legitimate criticism, absolutely. But wouldn't the approach be better is that, like you say, publicly come out and say, okay, you don't need any of this stuff. We stand behind it. Let's do it. Let's as a member of Parliament, okay, we don't like the memorandum of understanding. We want it wrote like this, and let's all vote on that and hold his feet to the fire, as opposed to just sitting there saying, oh, well, you got to get EV on board, and you got to get this on board and that on board. I think the biggest obstacle for us, truly, as a country, and it doesn't matter whether it's East Coast natural gas and oil from Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, fracking, the whole works. I think the biggest obstacle is OPEC.
OPEC, okay.
In all reality, right? I mean, OPEC is not going to allow their share of profits, especially Saudi Arabia, who pretty much has the majority vote in OPEC, or the Arab nations do, right? So
well,
I think that, we got a bigger obstacle down the road than trying to get pipelines. Like you said, the federal government has jurisdiction. Just do it.
Just do it. Okay. Gotcha. Well, that's what Mr. Poilievre is saying. Just do it. Just do it. But you see him as being opposing for the sake of opposing. I can understand that sentiment, sir. Thank you. We'll be right back. Every single phone line is available right now. Why don't you grab one? This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's take Rick's call. Rick's a first-time caller to Talkback in Calgary today. Hi, Rick.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Rick. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks for calling.
I
What's
just
on your
wanted
mind?
to say, I'm definitely not a clown show Carney fan. However, having said that, by him doing that MOU yesterday with Danielle, that's one step that I applaud. I will give him credit for that because he did a very smart thing. He did not give Evie, who's probably one of the worst premiers I've ever seen in Canadian history, the veto power. Plus, on top of that, he did not give the Indigenous people veto power. Carney's playing it like he is the boss and he gets to make the final decision. That I applaud him for. That to me was a good sound business move. And the other good thing that we got out of it yesterday was that Stephen Guilbeault, who absolutely hates Western Canada, left. He quit over it. So it's got to tell me that Carney's actually quite serious about this. Otherwise, Guilbeault would have waited it out and then knowing full well that Carney wasn't going to do anything. So this tells me that Carney's got serious if Guilbeault was leaving.
So you're happy to see the backside of Mr. Guilbeault, right?
Oh, couldn't have happened sooner to a nicer guy.
Yeah. I have to say, and I declare my bias right up front, I more or less feel the exact same way you do, sir. I find that man to be completely insufferable, Stephen Guilbeault.
He is the evil.
Very little time.
I look at him and I just see evil, and that's.
Well, I wouldn't say.
I look at him,
I don't see evil. You can just smell the arrogance.
What he did to Western Canada, Rob, was terrible.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes,
he made a lot of people suffer.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, that's my feelings. You have a good day.
You too, Rick. Thank you for your call. Justin, up next in Calgary. Hi, Justin.
Hey, how are you today, Rob?
Very good, Justin. Thank you. What's on your mind?
It's nice to hear you again. A couple of things. I'm getting a little tired of the budget talk and what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. It's all going to happen in good time, and we won't know it till it happens. So I'd love to debate it with lots and lots of people. I enjoy the conversation. But really, we don't know what's going to happen until the day it happened. People flip-flop so fast. But, Rob, if I may, I want to talk about the Workers' Compensation Board in Alberta. And my first question is, do you have such a thing as a Workers' Compensation Board there in Quebec or in Ontario?
Yeah, all the provinces have their own versions, of the workers' compensation. It's more of a provincially managed thing. Yeah.
It is. Okay. All right. Thank you for answering that. Now, I just got off the phone with these gentlemen and realizing it's not their fault. I was polite as possible. And I owed a little bit of money. So I paid them up and called them up and said, I'm not working right now. So I'd like to suspend my WCB. As actually with their suggestion. If you're not working and you don't have an employee, so why don't you suspend it and save a little money? Okay, that was a great idea. And then I got a call back today, and they're like, well, you were a little late in filing. I said, okay, I was, and it was my fault. But it turned out to be $514 in late charges. Now, I usually only pay about $1,200 a year.
Okay, you want to come back on, you can come back on.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. It's our Friday free-for-all Talkback, so we're wide open on topics. Pipeline politics been very, very hot today. That's been the big story across Canada and the MOU, the big deal between Ottawa and Alberta. We can talk about that or anything else. It's up to you. Justin was just talking about his situation with workers' compensation in Alberta, and they said you owe them $500 and some odd in late fees. Let's just wrap up our conversation here, Justin.
Well, thanks, Rob. I appreciate you hanging on to me there. It's it's a tough racket out here, and new housing has kind of been decimated out here. A lot of guys, a lot of phone calls every day looking for work, and I'd love to oblige them, but there's just not the work that I can count on. And for me to hold all of these fellas under my WCB doesn't make sense, right? I mean, I'm paying for them to, if they get hurt, if they get injured on my job site, I make sure that they're covered. But when I'm not working and I call them up and say, look, I want to shut her down for a bit, which is an option in Alberta, they generally are going to tell me that, okay, let's have a look at your books. And I said, well, we looked at them, and you said I owed you $15 to clean it all up, and I did that. And then today I said, let's put it on pause because, honestly, Rob, the housing market is so decimated here. I don't plan on hiring guys right now. And they said, well, that's fine. We can do that. You just have to pay up your $514 late fees. And I said, excuse me, I was just on the phone last week, and we took care of all this, and I was assuming I was at zero. But the pace at which our WCB works here in Alberta seems to be so slow, Rob. I couldn't imagine what a nightmare it would be for me or one of my fellas or girls to be injured and try to make a claim. I mean, if I can't get through to pay my bills properly with them, then how are these poor people supposed to make a claim if, God forbid, they
right.
cut off
Okay,
a
I see your
thumb
point. I see your point. Okay, I gotcha. Thank you. Gonna have to wrap up the conversation there, though, Justin. Thank you. 1-833-668-2577. Let's try Curtis. Is in Calgary. Hi, Curtis.
Oh, hi there. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Curtis. What's on your mind?
First of all, I do enjoy the show. I'm not an everydayer, but it's nice to, first of all, you're patient. Second of all, it's nice to see you voice your opinion once in a while. This is the bottom line.
Okay.
Canada's, 12 years behind where we could have been, to be a real player on the economic stage. And this is all pretty much based due to the skewed elected liberal power that's been in. And the liberal leaders could have had Canada as viewed as a superpower and was proud of its resources, not embarrassed by it. Meanwhile, all the opposing provinces that receive billions in royalties are the first to trash the economic opportunities. Like, we need to get with it. We need growth and jobs. We have the cleanest oil in the world, and we should be proud of our country's resources. But Canada is where it is right now because of all this red tape, BS, liberal, left-wing, green, everything. And look where we are. Carney's not building that thing. It'll take years and years.
Okay.
We've already missed the boat. So I hope they're proud of themselves.
Okay. You sound like a frustrated Albertan. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your call, and hope you'll tune in more often. I have been accused of being a cheerleader for the natural resources sector long before I even had this show. I don't mind that. If it's meant to be a put down, I'll accept that. I'm open about where I stand. I come from coal mining country, and I've had members of my family go to Northern Alberta to work in the oil sands. So I've seen how hard the work is, and I've seen the impact it can have on families. Being out there for a few weeks and coming home for a week and going back out. I've seen that. One of my views, and I think I expressed this a little bit earlier in the week, has been, can we afford not to do this? Projects like this. And the announcement of the MOU. Can we not afford to do that? How can we not afford to do this? Whether it's oil going from Alberta, hopefully to Asia markets at another 1 million barrels a day, or as I've been trying to emphasize, it's not just an Alberta story. Whether it's gas from Newfoundland and Labrador, or oil from Newfoundland and Labrador, or natural gas from Nova Scotia, potentially to markets in Europe. Can we afford not to do that? I would suggest to you pay very close attention to what's going on to the economy in this country. Trump's ambassador to Canada last week in Ottawa, when he was making news about the 51st states, Pete Hextra, he was pretty clear about where things stand and where things are going to stand for the foreseeable future when it comes to tariffs. And you can look it up for yourself. You can watch the video of what he said. It's all over the internet. He said Canada's just going to have to accept that there's going to be a tariff. And your only goal should be to pay the lowest tariffs. That's Trump's man in Canada. And that's what he said. And it's on tape. And you look around, what industries are doing well? Okay? What industries are doing well? You had the Prime Minister the day before he announced his deal with Smith yesterday, announced another aid package, another one for the softwood lumber industry, and another one for the steel industry. You have what's been going on with the auto industry because of tariffs. The news is not good. Thousands of jobs have been lost. Manufacturing's moving to the United States. And you had the $50 billion plus investments that the government made in the EV battery sector entirely in doubt. I mentioned the biggest potash producer in the country, Nutrien, just announced it's not going to build $1 billion export terminal in Canada. To our caller's point, Curtis, it's going to spend that money in Washington instead for a whole host of reasons. But to Curtis's point, mainly having to do with the inability to get things done here. In addition, you have billions of dollars of seafood exports from Atlantic Canada, subjected to tariffs imposed by China, because we have tariffs on Chinese-made EVs. You have a whole range of other agricultural commodities subjected to tariffs for both India and China. Like, everybody needs to wake up and smell some coffee if you can afford it. What's doing well? Gosh almighty. Here's one project that would do well, and it's almost a sure thing that it would do well, a pipeline from northern Alberta to the northwest coast of BC. We'll see what happens with it. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday, free for all, Talkback here on News Radio. Robert's up next in Calgary. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Rob. Hey, Rob, I got a question for you.
Yeah,
I have a question for you. So there was talk about the TUC, the Transportation Utility Corridor across Canada, and would you think that would help if we had a designated TUC east to west, or at least to the west coast? Do you think that would help with this pipeline?
Well, I don't know much about that, I'll be honest with you, but I was noticing that seems to be something that Premier Ford is exploring in Ontario right now, because he's doing this, he has his government exploring a feasibility study for an east-west energy corridor that would run across the north, like from northern Alberta across the prairies into like northern Ontario and out to Hudson's Bay. And I know that's one of the things that he's exploring. Other than that, I'm not too sure about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it would pile a ton of time onto this, right? Because, a pipeline company, they're going to design the avenue or the route, the best route that they choose, the most feasible route, the most cost effective route from A to B. So, I just thought I'd mention it because there had been talk about this cross Canada, designated corridor.
Okay, thank you for your call, Robert. I wish I knew more about it, and maybe I'll do some reading over the weekend about it. Let's go to Lance. Up next, Lance on Talkback. Hi there, Lance.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah,
thanks
good
for
to
having
hear
me.
from you. My pleasure.
Yeah. Couldn't agree with Curtis more, but on the MOU, what seems to be missed is not that Carney's got the agreement in place, or not that he intends to do anything that he doesn't say. but he's left it out there that EB and First Nations all have a de facto veto. He said it in the House of Commons on Tuesday, and this is what Pouyev is pushing back on. He's not pushing back on, oh, you'll never do it. You'll never get to the point where you have to do it because you're going to use EB as your veto, even though it's not constitutionally required. That's what they're setting this up to be.
Okay. You think that's the game plan all along? That he's doing this basically. You're suggesting that he's doing this for appearances, maybe for some goodwill, maybe to placate that independence movement that's in Alberta. But when push comes to shove, in the end, he'll say, "Well, at least I tried, and it's not my fault that it failed."
100%. He gave her all the logs to put together the capital, and there's going to be nothing left to glue it together. But I'm just asking the Duke to go to the AGM with exactly that message. They're dropping this. They've dropped this right before the AGM to make sure that there's some sort of win or some sort of positive energy going in.
And do you think that explains why Danielle Smith is so pleased with the accomplishment, that it's all about having to face the United Conservative Party membership at this convention that starts today in Edmonton? You think that's all it's about?
On one front, for sure. There's something positive.
Okay.
The membership and say, I'm able to move. When we'll talk about moving forward.
Okay. Because I mean, Danielle Smith was saying yesterday, look, we didn't get anywhere for 10 years. We didn't get anywhere for 10 years here in Alberta because of the ideologically driven Trudeau government. And at least here's a prime minister who is willing to listen and even give in to some of our demands, such as oil and gas emissions cap, gone, albeit in favor of a higher industrial carbon tax and the billions that you're going to have to invest in carbon capture and storage, but also those clean electricity regulations. That's one of the reasons Stephen Guilbeault is no longer in cabinet. He was so upset that the clean electricity regulations are going by the wayside. Premier Smith is very happy about that, of course, because not only does it provide longer, more longevity to the grid, more stability to your grid, but it will make Alberta a more attractive destination for AI data centers, which are very power hungry, of course. So do you not see any upside here at all?
I simply don't believe them. So whatever upside...
You don't believe them? Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lance. Thank you. Very suspicious of it all there. We'll be right back with more of your calls here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Karen is up next on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi, Karen. You're on the air.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, Karen. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind today?
I just wanted to say it's my birthday today, and I got the best gift any Canadian could have with Mr. Guilbeault saying goodbye. The best day in my life is that guy resigning. I wish he would have gone all the way and we get a by-election.
Okay. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. Where would he go? That pays him $200,000 a year, right?
Well, Elizabeth May wants him to come to the Green Party.
Well, wouldn't those two, they'd make a fine pair, I suppose.
I'm laughing myself.
Right.
Wouldn't that be funny, eh?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is a question that I wanted to ask today. Stephen Guilbeault is not a cabinet minister anymore. I think Curtis has got my my music lined up here. I was going to ask, how does that make you feel? Hearing the news that Stephen Guilbeault isn't a cabinet minister anymore, does it make you feel like this? Like, that's not how Karen feels, Oh, Steve, how am I supposed to live with you? How am I supposed to live without you, Steve? Or does it make you feel more like this? Yeah. I think I know how you feel, right?
They make it fine there.
I think that more accurately reflects how people feel learning that Stephen Guilbeault doesn't get to sit at the grown-ups table anymore. That he's not a cabinet minister anymore. How does that make you feel that Stephen Guilbeault is not a cabinet minister anymore? Does it make you feel like this? Steve, I just can't live without you, Steve. I can't live without you, Steve. I can't live without you being a cabinet minister, Steve. Or does it make you feel more like this?
Bring me down, can't none bring me down. Your love is too high. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. I said, clap along, give you feel.
I think that's how a lot of people feel today. Stephen Guilbeault, not a cabinet minister anymore, makes me feel happy. But because, ladies and gentlemen, he is so courageous, he is still sitting as an MP and supporting a prime minister who, according to him, is letting the planet burn. Oh, and by the way, he'll still collect his $200,000 salary. And as Tom Korski told us, he just qualified for his pension about 5 weeks ago, which is based on his best 6 years of service, most of which were spent as a cabinet minister. When he wasn't making $200,000 a year, as he will from now on, he was making close to $300,000 a year. Because, Stephen Guilbeault, he's a man of conviction. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, it sure is. In the home stretch here, the Friday free-for-all Talkback. Love to hear from you. We have about 3 lines available there now. 1-833-668-2577. Zach up next on Talkback. Hi, Zach.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Zach. Thanks. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to rejoice a little bit in the resignation of Stephen Guilbeault, and couldn't have asked for a better man. But anyways,
okay.
On to my real question. What do you think about Senate reform in this country? Do you have any opinions on it?
Senate reform is largely impossible, sir. It's been explored in the past, and even the Supreme Court has not ruled on it, but it has opined on it and has deemed it pretty much impossible.
Did they give any reason for it?
Well, I don't know. It was many years ago. I would have to go back and look at the rationale. But this is the way the country is set up. This is the way the country was created. This is the way we govern ourselves. And you may not like it, but it's almost impossible to change it.
No, I'm not calling for its abolition or anything. I know there's some people my age that do. I was more kind of brainstorming on a way to make it more fair and representative of our country and kind of the purpose of Senate. I know a lot of people, particularly in Alberta, talk about maybe making it Democrat, like how in the States where they vote their senators in. I don't know if I really agree with that. But I thought maybe the idea of having the provincial governments appoint senators instead of having the prime minister appointing senators, that seems to me more like an adequate way to run it. But I was just curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't really have many thoughts on it right now because I'd like to go back and do my own research and refresh my own memory on that whole period where we were contemplating ways to reform the Supreme Court, how it would be done. Triple E Senate, in where you are, for example, they have had elections for senators, hoping then that the prime minister would appoint this person. Look, we had an election here. This is the person we want to the Senate. Why don't you appoint this person? And the prime minister would appoint, a typical liberal crony, even and call them an independent senator. But I would have to go back, and I just don't want to opine on things like that without refreshing my own knowledge base, if that's fair enough, Zach. If I don't know, I'm the kind of person, if I don't know and I don't have a clear answer, I'm just not going to BS my way through an answer. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. No, I totally respect that. I was just curious if you ever had thought about it.
Oh, yeah, I've thought about it, but, I'm getting up there in age and some of my thoughts don't come immediately to mind. But Zach, thank you for your call today to Brooks. Shane is in Brooks. Hi, Shane.
Hey, Rob. How you doing today? I got an idea.
Yeah, very good, Shane. Okay.
To build that pipeline through BC fast. You can tell me what you think. So if the federal government went out to, say, BC somewhere, maybe on the outskirts of Whistler, somewhere like that, and build the biggest casino on planet Earth. And when you're done building it, hand it over to the First Nations on a silver plate. In exchange, in exchange for a blanket lease, for say 50 years or 100, that gives you a right of way in that province for any type of infrastructure, because that's the sort of project that the First Nations would probably entertain, because ultimately that's might be where the money winds up going anyway. So just skip that step and build it for them, because we know. Well,
I was told this week. It was my friend Cam Holmstrom was on our show, who runs a firm in Ottawa called Neepaway Strategies, and Cam is Métis. He's originally from Kenora, and he's very familiar with First Nations politics, First Nations business interests, and he tells me there are First Nations, like wealthy First Nations investors on the West Coast and in the rest of Canada, who not only want to own a pipeline that would go to BC, maybe not necessarily this one along this route that would go to Prince Rupert, but they want to buy it, they want to own it, and they want to build one east as well. It's not as though there's not interest in this from First Nations in investors, sir.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of interest.
Oh, sure. We have this idea in this country that all First Nations somehow have all the same opinion on all the same things, when there's a diversity of opinion in First Nations communities, just as there is in everyday Canadian society. And,
well, let me ask you this.
When it comes to resource development, there have been First Nations involved in First Nations development for decades and decades and decades in this country.
Absolutely. So after yesterday's announcement, then, let me ask you a question then, based on what you just said.
Okay.
I think what we're going to witness on the mainstream news is a lot of negative press from the First Nations because of this. But is the mainstream news gonna exhaust all the positive views out there? Are they only going to focus on?
I think the answer is no to that.
Well,
I think the answer is no to that, and I think we've already seen that. Haven't we already seen that in the last week and a half? I mean, look, I'm not one of these people who's a big CBC basher, but honest to goodness, on the public broadcaster, it's been a parade of one person after another on why this is such a terrible idea. From environmental activists to First Nations organizations to academics, like there's been no balance whatsoever.
Yeah. I can't think of a time I've ever seen a group of First Nations people that knew how to speak very well get up on national TV and say, yes, we support this.
Well, they're out there.
We're all interested.
They're out there.
But
they're out there.
Yeah, well, I wish they would. I wish their voice would be heard the same as the opposing side.
Okay. Thank you. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
I want to leave you with a thought. Just give it some thought. Consider it over the weekend, okay? Why I think projects like this pipeline project to the northwest coast of BC has merit. Why similar projects would have merit, whether it's a pipeline going east or what Premier Houston wants to do with his province in Nova Scotia and tap for natural gas in a big way. The Premier of Newfoundland was in Ottawa this week, lobbying hard for Bay du Nord, big project by Equinor off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, saying we're back in the oil business. We're back in the oil business. Where are we going to get the money to pay for the bills that are coming due in this country? Have you ever really considered this? Consider this. Think about healthcare costs. These are all public figures, by the way. According to public figures, we are spending right now $400 billion a year on healthcare. That's all the provinces, all the territories, and the federal government. $400 billion a year on healthcare. By 2030, less than 5 years from now, closer to 4, it will be $500 billion. $500 billion just on healthcare. And by 2040, less than 15 years from now, it will be almost $750 billion. Healthcare spending in this country is on track to almost double in less than 15 years. I would ask you, where is that money going to come from? That's from Ki-Hi, that data, by the way, the gold standard for healthcare data. Where are we going to get the money to pay for healthcare? Maybe selling more oil and gas would certainly help. That's just healthcare. I want you to think about the other obligations that we have in this country. I'm not worried about CPP. That's paid through contributions, fully funded for decades to come. But think about the other obligations that we have to our seniors, old age security, guaranteed income supplement. They don't work like the CPP. They come right from our tax dollars. Just this year, the federal government is going to pay out $80 billion in OAS and GIS. $80 billion. In less than 5 years from now, those payments are going up to $135 billion. In less than 5 years, the OAS and GIS payments are going up almost 70% in the next 5 years. And by 2060, OAS and GIS will double again and hit $300 billion, an increase of 275% in seniors' benefits between now and the year 2060. In 35 years, who's going to pay that bill? An extra $700 billion a year for healthcare and $200 to $300 billion like OAS and GIS. Where is that money coming from? Where's that money coming from? You may want to think about that. Margaret in Drumheller. Thanks for calling, Margaret. You're on the air.
Oh, hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to...
Yeah, you're welcome.
There's a sort of a question that's in the back of my mind as I listen to your show. I don't hear it every single day, but on this or other talk shows, and I hear sort of a disconnect between when I'm listening to the calls. There are those who seem to understand clearly what it's like to struggle to pay bills. They really understand the value of their labor and the dollars it earns. And then you hear the people who seem to be okay with things that projects, et cetera, that go on for years and years producing nothing, but the public sector that's involved in that, they're not in any hurry to get anything done, because the longer it goes, they have secure secure salaries, and there's no incentive for them to do anything quickly. It's the people who actually work for a living, producing either goods or services, things like that. And I'm not talking about government services. They're paid anyway. It's not a service like, doing coffees or whatever. They're not actually doing anything like that. But their salaries are secure. And the longer they can keep them secure, the better they like it. I just listen to the calls and I hear the difference in the opinions. And I was wondering how many of those callers actually live on the public purse, taxpayer money for their guaranteed salaries, and how many people are actually out there earning a living, working. And I'm just curious, that's all. If there were any way if people could hear themselves and know that they fit, which group do they fit into? And one is a disconnect from the struggling people, and one is understanding how those people have to strive to live. Yes. And I'm curious if the people themselves could hear this, could hear the opinions and realize that they are disconnected from reality when they think things can go on forever and there's no employment generated out of it. That's just a thought.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it ties in nicely with my commentary on the rising bills that are coming due in this country and who's going to pay them as well. Such a great point, Margaret. Thank you. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
I think we're going to go to Mark in Calgary up next as we get ready to wind down Talkback for another week. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Rob. How you doing, man?
Yeah, very good, Mark. Thank you. Yeah.
Good.
What do you want to talk about?
I just wanted to add a couple things. So the MOU from yesterday, I think has the potential to be a really good thing for a pipeline for Canada. But I feel like Carney put this into play because Daniel Smith has been a thorn in his side ever since he's been in office. So this, I believe, buys him time to get other things done, like the carbon and the EVs and all that stuff. So that being said, it would be great if actually everything was going to move forward on that MOU, but I really feel like it won't. I think he's buying himself time to do other things.
Okay.
And the only other thing I wanted to talk about was whatever happened to Trudeau? How come he's out there gallivanting Canada with Katy Perry and he's not in court answering for all the stuff he did with the COVID days?
Well, I don't know.
Any thoughts on that? He was supposed to be answering for all this bank account freezing and all the overreach he did while COVID was in place.
Well, I mean, they had an inquiry after they declared the Emergencies Act, right? There was an inquiry.
Yeah, and whatever happened
because you had to have an inquiry, and he was called as a witness, and he went and he testified, and the judge listened to all the testimony and issued a report, and that particular judge said that the use of the Emergencies Act was justified, although I think he had to be drag kicking and screaming into making that ruling. That was just my own interpretation of it, but he made it and said it was justified, but then a later court said it was not, that it was an unconstitutional use of power.
That's too bad. One other thing though, Rob, Stephen Guilbeault leaving yesterday, resigning, that was the best thing I think that could have happened to Canada, because he, I believe, had a lot of that negative energy for Canada with his ideas and his thoughts on how he wanted to move forward with all of it. So,
yeah, I wonder if he's going to be the last. I mean, there's quite a few of them who are leaving now. And one of the things to watch for in federal politics, I mean, the way the month of December is, they're going to call it quits in the House of Commons probably in about 2 weeks from now. And then the news media will be all about year in review, news story of the year, newsmaker of the year, all of this stuff. In the new year, you're going to have by-elections for Chrystia Freeland, Bill Blair, the former police chief in Toronto. Maybe Wilkinson might not be long for the job. There are going to be people who are going to be shuffled out. Other people are going to take a walk in the snow. Who knows? Maybe Stephen Guilbeault might be one of them. He says he's going to stick around. But if he's not a cabinet minister getting shuffled here and there and everywhere and can't ring up $700,000 in a year in travel expenses, what's really the point of the gig? There could be, maybe 5-6 by-elections in the new year. It'll be interesting to see the turnout of that. It could totally reshape how the House of Commons looks in this minority parliament. Thanks for your call. Thanks for all your calls all week. Pipeline politics dominating. We'll see what happens next week. Have a wonderful weekend. The latest breaking news next.